Bryce Young's pro day in front of a hefty Carolina contingent happening today in Tuscaloosa. Here to talk about it from Locked On Bama is Jimmy Stein. Jimmy, let's get the obvious out of the way because it doesn't stop being discussed. Bryce Young's size. He did not step on a scale. He was listed on Alabama's roster as 190 pounds. He was 204 at the combine. Salad and scallops the night before with the Panthers. So eating pretty healthy, adding in those fish fats and all that. But what's the Alabama line? What's the Bryce Young, Nick Saban line about his size and how it, wouldn't hurt him at the NFL level? Because clearly that's their perspective.
Right, certainly an understandable question. He's an outlier. There's never been a first pick in the draft, his specific size. But I think the way Alabama looks at it is the SEC is an incredibly strong conference, produces more NFL draft picks than any other conference. Bryce has basically for 2 years been playing against these same guys he's going to be playing against on Sundays. His size was never an issue at Alabama. The one injury he suffered, was certainly kind of unrelated to his size and only put him out for a game and a half in 2 years. He was sacked over 40 times his sophomore year that he won the Heisman Trophy, never suffered an injury. So he has been durable at Alabama. His size was obviously not an issue in terms of production. And again, when you're playing in the SEC, you're playing against the same elite pass rushers, the same front seven guys, the same DBs you're going to be seeing at the next level. So certainly understand the question, certainly understand the doubts, but it was never an issue at Alabama.
Obviously, I mean, you said it right there. He is an outlier based on most NFL standards for a starting quarterback in the past, but there's exceptions to every rule. You've watched this kid play football and play at a high level for a long time. Why is he the exception to that rule?
He has that it factor, that thing that you can't really define. Bryce showed up at Alabama a star. He was a star when he showed up. He's never been anything but a superstar player. Even the one season he backed up Mac Jones here at Alabama and wasn't starting. He won a Heisman in his first season. He has this it factor. And real briefly, Bryce became the first self-made multi-millionaire college quarterback. He's the first one of his kind. There'll be a lot more coming down the pike, but Bryce was the first. And you would think that would create a huge locker room issue. But the fact is, everyone in the football building likes Bryce. Every player, every coach, down to the guy that cleans the building. Everyone likes Bryce. He has this great it factor that just makes him a star, and it makes, among his other physical traits, makes me believe he's going to continue to be a star even in the NFL.
All right. Well, Alabama, I think they have 2 pro days, right? I mean, they're always busy. There's always a lot of top end prospects. There's always going to be, pretty much all 32 NFL teams represented. Have you seen anything like what the Panthers brought down before? About 12 to 15 people, including ownership, and that's kind of the tour de pro days that they're doing this week.
No, there hasn't been anything like that I can recall. And Alabama's had a lot of high-profile players. You look at the quarterbacks between Tua and Mac, and Jalen was here 3 years. There hasn't been anything like that. I think what sets it apart, Nick, is the ownership angle. The fact that the Teppers were in town for 2 days, that they met with Bryce last night. Great picture on Twitter of Nicole Tepper hugging Bryce this morning. They obviously hit it off as Bryce does with everyone. But I think the fact that the ownership is here and invested and interested, that's new for sure. And I've been a part or seen all the Nick Saban pro days.
So there was really 2 phases to this visit from Carolina to Bryce Young, obviously on the field, and we'll get to that. I don't think you were at the dinner. Kudos to you if you were.
No.
but knowing what you know about Bryce, what do you think Carolina might have taken away about him as the person? You kind of alluded to it. He treats everybody the same in the building and all that. But what about his personality and him as a person? Do you think they probably gleaned from that?
Well, it's not real breaking news, and it's not surprising I would say it, but it's just so obvious they liked him. I'm sure they did. Everyone does. It's not an act either. I'm sure they liked Bryce. Bryce is an ideal face of the franchise. He's a good person. There's never been off the field issues. He's the hardest working guy on the team. Nick Saban referred to him today as a coach on the field. Nick Saban even said Bryce knew the offense and knew the opponent as well as any coach he had. And keep in mind, the OC, his quarterback coach was Bill O'Brien. Here's another guy. Bryce Young has been prepared to play in the NFL by an NFL offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. That's one more reason I think Bryce can play immediately. And I'm sure the Teppers and the whole Panthers front office, when they had dinner with Bryce last night and spent so much time with him, they like him. I'm sure there's a lot of confidence that they have in Bryce, but they have a difficult decision. Obviously, C.J. Stroud is one heck of a quarterback prospect himself.
So the Panthers didn't get to see Bryce throw at the combine, obviously, and you watched, all the footage today. What did you see from Bryce in terms of what he put together at his pro day?
You really saw, I think, quintessential Bryce. Now, you really have to watch the game tape to see what Bryce Young brings to the table. But today you saw Bryce, the distributor, Bryce, the point guard, very accurate. Everything's on time. Very professional, very polished. But, he's not a guy that's going to whip the ball through a car wash and the ball doesn't get wet. He's not that guy. He's not the guy that's going to make the wow deep throws that Anthony Richardson made at the combine. That's not Bryce. But Bryce always stays within himself. He's very smart about what he can and can't do. And today was about what Bryce can do, and he did it extremely well.
Just watching his 5 minutes or so interview after with the assembled media, listen, I watch college football. I see him, but he's got his helmet on. I don't see the face. I don't hear him talk. He came across to me as soft-spoken, and I don't mean that in a detrimental way, because I think he could probably still be a leader. How do you kind of see his personality as a leader and a guy who can rally the guys on the field, which he's done many times?
Well, Bryce is excellent in the 2-minute offense. He's excellent on third down. I think those are two things that translate well to the NFL, and I think it translates to what you're saying. Bryce has this quiet confidence. And keep in mind, even though Alabama lost 2 games this season and didn't make the playoff, which has been very rare under Nick Saban, but Alabama didn't make the playoff. Bryce Young never left the field with Alabama behind. I mean, at the end of the games Alabama lost, Bryce led Alabama to a lead late in the game and then suffered walk-off losses with the defense on the field. I think that lends itself to Bryce's quiet confidence. He's really good in the 2-minute. He did it multiple times at Auburn, as a sophomore, at Texas this year in a tough environment, again leading last-minute drives down the field. Bryce was outstanding in that. I think that's very important in terms of how his game and how his demeanor translates to the next level.
Yeah, game tape certainly going to be a huge component, or should be, when evaluating Bryce Young. You talk about his ability to rally, on third down and in 2-minute situations, comeback situations as well. We hear playmaker, and as soon as the Panthers folks threw that word out, I knew they were talking about Bryce Young. Now wait a minute, it's not just about size; it's about playmaking ability. What types of plays would this guy make? Maybe if a few come to mind, or just the things that he could do on the field that are special, that do set him apart, that you saw?
Right. It's a great question. I'll tell you something that was really frustrating for Alabama fans this season, but Bryce excelled, because Alabama had a much different receiver core this past season. They had a lot of true freshmen playing significant snaps. The older kids are good players, but they're not, first round guys. You have to remember, just 3 seasons ago, Alabama had Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, and Henry Ruggs all on the team at the same time. Well, the receiver core that Bryce had to work with this season was nothing like that. It was a lot of young guys, and teams were dropping a lot of guys into coverage, 7, 8 guys in coverage, and all of Bryce's initial reads were often covered guys. The other team had 7 or 8 guys back there, and what Bryce did all season long is ad lib on third down after all the reads were gone. He would keep the play alive, extend the play with his athleticism until something eventually came open. The numbers look good. The third down conversion rate was outstanding. but so much of it was off script, off platform, and Bryce just extending the play athletically until finally something could happen. He was amazingly consistent with it, but it was worrisome and a little painful to watch. The season before, when he had first-round picks to throw to at wide receiver, Jamison Williams, John Mechie, hey, everything was progressions, on time, on the money, accurate throws. This season, he had to do a lot of ad-libbing, a lot of Patrick Mahomes-looking stuff. He was really good.
All right, last question. Obviously, as you mentioned, the Panthers have a decision to make between likely Young or Stroud. Say it's Young, given what you know about the Panthers and what they've kind of been setting up here with the anticipation of a rookie quarterback coming in. How do you think that could mesh with what all of the things we've talked about with Bryce?
I think because he's so good at improvising, he's so good at, hey, you draw up the play, maybe it doesn't work because you don't have all the pieces in place just yet. Bryce is going to be very good at making something happen out of nothing. I mean, I think that's what he brings to the table for the Panthers immediately. Hey, when you don't have all the pieces there, when the protection maybe isn't what you quite have in mind, when the receivers aren't maybe getting a lot of separation early in their route, Bryce is very good at the ad-libbing, at the making something happen, and he certainly rises the level of play of everyone around him and his brains. I mean, this is a guy that's been well coached by Bill O'Brien. He's a student of the game. I think he learned a lot of that from Mac Jones. Imagine Mac Jones with the Patriots, his preparation with more of a plus athlete like a Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. He's kind of a mesh of those two. I think he could be very, very effective, even if the cast around him isn't quite ready for prime time next season.
Jimmy Stein from Locked On Bama, thank you so much for your perspective on Bryce Young. And do us a favor, if you see any of those stragglers down there from Charlotte still hanging around Tuscaloosa, send them back our way.
I think they're headed to Lexington, pretty sure.
Yeah. Another dinner on tap. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks.